Morning people, welcome back to F Politics. Nigel Farage was on Bloomberg TV today, so the financial newspaper that's aimed at big business types. And it's a great example of that quote that's often attributed to Abraham Lincoln, that you can fool all the people some of the time, and some of the people all the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. Because whenever these politicians go to America, or they speak on news channels that are for a very specific audience, you see a new side of them, because they're trying to appeal to different values and priorities. And sometimes, simply because they don't think many people will see it, they drop their guard a little bit. And today, Nigel Farage admitted that he just says whatever it takes to win whatever vote happens to be happening. He effectively admitted that his economic plan is bullshit, and that he's happy for foreign billionaires to steal our elections as long as they're his mates. But he starts off by bragging about the Reform Party's success.
We're doing well. We're on the up. And do you know why? Because we're optimistic. You come to a Reform meeting. I've done 4 rallies this year already. They actually believe that with the right leadership, with the right vision, with the right courage, we can turn the country around. So
he is saying that the Reform Party owes its success to the fact that its voters believe that the Reform Party has a solid plan for the future of the UK. But the Bloomberg host points out a flaw in that plan according to the Institute for Fiscal Studies.
The IFS said of the proposals in the Reform Manifesto, spending reductions would save less than stated, that tax cuts would cost more than stated by a margin of tens of billions of pounds a year.
So the Reform Party's plans are tens of billions of pounds off, and Nigel Farage doesn't even object to that. He simply gives an excuse.
We weren't going to win the last election. What we wanted to do with the contract was to set out our vision broadly of where we want to go. Now, the responsibility that is upon me now is very, very different. We're now in a completely different place. I fully accept the point you're making, that between now and the next election, we've got to be more specific rather than general.
So it's okay to be tens of billions of pounds out, a bill that would have to be paid by the people of the UK, because in that election you didn't expect to be the ones carrying the can. And he literally said that his responsibility level has changed now, which means he didn't feel responsible for the lies he was telling. Are you starting to see a pattern with this man? He will get the country to vote for something that he knows will cost the country billions, but he doesn't feel any responsibility for it because it's going to be another party that actually has to govern with those plans. That is the literal story of Brexit.
Brexit was never going to solve any of our domestic problems. What Brexit does is give a British government the opportunity to do things differently, to make us more competitive.
But here's one of the plans he was talking about.
The big tax cut we want is to raise the threshold at which you start paying tax up from $12,500 a year to $20,000 a year. And I accept that it comes at a big initial cost.
Now, raising the threshold at which you start paying tax on your earnings objectively would allow working class people to keep more of the money that they earn. So obviously I don't object to that on principle, but if you're not taxing that money, the government has less money to spend, which is why the Institute for Fiscal Studies says it'll cost tens of billions of pounds. So that's really only a policy you should ever reasonably consider if you have tens of billions of pounds available to make up for that. So coming from a guy whose main policy, Brexit, is costing the UK government tens of billions of pounds a year in tax revenue, that is mathematically insane. And this is the bit where he starts talking not to the general public, but more to the big bosses in the financial district of London where this is being filmed.
Yeah, there has to be a stick. I mean, what is all this nonsense about 4-day weeks, work from home?
But how?
I know, allowing employees to have real lives and save money on the commute. Absolute nonsense. And if illness is preventing them from working and therefore they're relying on benefits, fuck them.
How can you get to number 10 on that promise to the electorate, that you have to get back to work? Anybody who's suffering from depression, who has benefits coming in, you have to give that very hard. Would they vote for Reform?
What about the working population? What about those people I see on the M25 at 5:30 on a Monday morning, right? Heading off to work, working much longer hours than their parents or grandparents ever did.
So he's saying that he cares more about the people that are working harder than they've ever had to because of the cost of living crisis, more than he cares about people that are suffering with mental health issues. As if the two things aren't inherently linked, as if every expert in the field isn't saying that the mental health crisis is being made worse by the cost of living crisis. A cost of living crisis which, by the way, is being made worse by the main policy of Nigel Farage, because it's taking £1,000 a year from every household in the country. So you make people poor to the point that they're working harder, and some of them are developing mental health issues, and then you say, nah, screw them. What a man of the people. And given that he's just admitted that he ran his election on plans that are tens of billions of pounds off because he didn't think he was going to win, I find it insane that he then says this.
I was amazed how little scrutiny Labour's economic plans came under in the run-up.
But his party is literally the Brexit Party, and I'm not making that up. It was called the Brexit Party. He ran his election in 2019 as the Brexit Party, and then they simply changed the name to the Reform Party. The party that he is running only exists because of Brexit. And I got confirmation from the deputy leader of the party during last year's general election that their Brexit policy is a no-deal Brexit.
I would rip up the Trade and Cooperation Agreement and the Withdrawal Agreement. I'd take Northern Ireland back into the United Kingdom. I would deregulate business. I would get rid of the net zero nonsense, which is absolutely killing our economy.
Okay, so
I would
no deal
cut
Brexit
taxes
then.
on. I would
so
cut
no deal
tax,
Brexit then.
Absolutely no
No
deal.
deal
The
Brexit.
best deal was always no deal.
A no-deal Brexit would mean all the damage that Brexit is already doing to our economy, plus tariffs on every single thing that we buy and sell from the EU. And I got them to admit that that would make us poorer for the next 20 years.
Sometimes you have to take, you have to swallow your medicine to get better in the future. So this is maybe a 5-year, 10-year, 20-year plan.
So it is the official policy of the Reform Party to make this country poorer. Yet Nigel Farage is now saying...
But it's on the economics that people want to see some results.
Oh, I agree with that, which means they should never ever vote for his party. And again, they're talking in the financial district of London, so he says...
And not just the rich leaving London and leaving our big cities, which they are. In their thousands. People are relocating.
Yeah, the chief of the financial district of London says that Brexit has caused 40,000 jobs to leave the UK. So when you complain about the thousands of rich employees leaving the city of London, you do know you're to blame for that, right? But of course, Nigel Farage is counting on Big Daddy Trump to save us all.
I can tell you that in 2016 and past the inauguration into the early part of 2017, the team around Trump were really anxious to get a trade deal with the UK and to do it as quickly as possible. Why? They wanted to show that they're not protectionists. They believe in fair competition, but not as they see it, unfair competition with China and other countries that undercut them on wages, on environmental standards and everything else.
He's talking about Trump's America First agenda from his first term in office, namely that any trade deal they did had to be in America's favor. So he knows that that includes Trump's demand that any trade deal they do involves the other country's health service paying more for drugs so that American companies pay less. So Nigel Farage is very much laying the ground for Trump to bleed the NHS dry. Are you starting to see how Nigel Farage's agenda will cost thousands of British lives?
You talk a lot about your close relationship with the US and how important that relationship is. Our closest trading partner is still the EU.
Only in your mind.
I mean, also geographically, literally, and commercially, because we do 46.7% of our trade with the EU, whereas we only do 17.6% of our trade with America.
I mean, you know, our biggest country relationship is with America.
But not trading.
She's making the point that America may be a bigger economy than the EU, but we do less trade with America than we do with the EU, because America is on the other side of the planet.
No, well, Germany's a country still, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, there you are.
The EU as a whole.
Yes, but the whole point of the EU is that they make trade deals together, and because of the single market, they follow the same rules, so they're essentially one big trading entity. And Nigel Farage knows that because that's the whole reason for his existence. So saying that we do less trade with Germany than we do with America is as pointless as saying we do less trade with Texas as we do with the EU. The EU is a trading bloc. That's the whole point. And there's an interesting bit here about Tommy Robinson and how Nigel Farage is trying to distance himself from Tommy Robinson, even though Elon Musk and Donald Trump seem to be big fans of him.
Tommy Robinson has nothing to do with me, has never been anything to do with me, and never will be anything to do with me. My brand of politics is non-sectarian, non-racist. It always has been, and it always will be.
Now, we don't need to debate whether or not Nigel Farage is racist when his own comms director from Leave.eu said that the campaign that he ran in 2016 was basically a modern version of the Nazis. But listen to why he says he doesn't want to jump on the American bandwagon if Tommy Robinson is on it.
There is an element of the conservative right in America that view Robinson as a hero figure, right? Because they see him as the man that fought the grooming gangs, all right? What they don't see is all the rest of it. and they don't know the full story, in my opinion.
And this is where Nigel Farage is kind of being smart, because he knows the truth about one of the differences between American society and British society. And I can't take credit for this quote because I got it from TikTok.
So here's my thesis. In America, it seems as if classism is more subtle while racism is more presenting, while in Britain and the UK, the racism is more subtle and the classism is more presenting.
Nigel Farage is the respectable, subtle face of racism. That's how he's done so well over the years. As has been pointed out by many commentators, especially during the riots, such as Jupiter Ball, racism is often blamed on the working classes, whereas the upper classes seem to get away with it better. Even though, as I said during the riots, ethnic minority people face a far larger threat to our well-being from men in suits than we do from thugs in balaclavas. Because working class people don't hold power, so institutional racism is out of their hands. It's upper classes that control that. But people like Nigel Farage get away with it because they're posh, upper class, and subtle, the way the British like our racism. That's why Nigel Farage doesn't want anything to do with Tommy Robinson, because he knows that he would make the racism far too obvious to get away with. But then we move on to Musk.
Through your friendship with Elon Musk, is there a risk of you introducing a similar threat into the UK in terms of like the interests of one very, very rich tech billionaire and his concerns taking priority over the concerns of regular voters and, you know, the potential of someone being seen to try and buy an election in the UK?
Musk is a very powerful figure, of that there's no doubt. But I also think he's a hero.
So yes, he would have power, but I like him, therefore it's fine.
When it comes to power and influence, I think the important thing is he mustn't be seen himself to be dictating what the Treasury Department do. And that is important.
This is what I said about them letting their guards down when they're on platforms that they think not many people are going to watch. Because listen to what he just said. The problem is specifically Elon Musk being seen to pull the purse strings of the UK, not whether or not he's actually pulling the purse strings of the UK. He is very happy for Elon Musk to basically just buy the country as long as he gets his own way. And the way he says it, like he himself being seen to pull the purse strings of the Treasury, that means that he's okay with somebody else acting on his behalf, you know, like him. The extent to which Nigel Farage is happy to work with 2 foreign billionaires to screw over the entire country, in days gone by, he would be charged with treason. I'm Femi. Make sure you follow F Politics so politics doesn't F you. Have a great week.